Okay, partners, we are back. We got some builds today for the Baby Xander, the most recent free-to-play unit. So, I think he's pretty good. He seems like a solid overall unit. Artwork checks out. He's got some really great free-to-play artwork. I like this one a lot, actually. This injured artwork. The pose is really cool looking. So, that one's nice. Obviously, this one's really cool, too, where he looks very princely. Holding his chin up high to the sky. Ain't no reason for him to cry. Alright, so Xander here, these are his stats. We've got 41 HP, 48 attack, 30 speed, 48 defense, and 23 res. He's got 2 super boons. He's got 1 on attack and 1 on res. Honestly, the res one is not that awful. Because his res, you look at his base res 23, that's not all that great. So, it may not be the worst idea to get plus res on a Floret if you're trying to get some more stats. But mainly, what you're going to want to go for here is plus attack with the trait fruits. And then the Floret will either go to plus defense or plus res, depending on what you want to go for. So, stats seem fine. Okay, and then he does have a preference weapon, which always bodes well for these free-to-play units. So, he's got Sword of Dusk, 16 might. Grants a flat attack up 3, and then enables Canto Rem +1 with a min of 2. For foes in 3 rows or 3 columns centered on him, he inflicts attack, speed, and defense -5, nullifies any special acceleration effects that they've got, and then they also suffer guaranteed follow-up attacks. So this is a Crux style of debuff where all your other allies are going to eat from this, and they're going to be able to take advantage of these debuffs here. So all he has to do really is just stand on the map, line up with the enemies in 3 rows of 3 columns, and all your other guys are able to reap the benefits there, which is really good. This is a good type of support to be doing. Okay, then also at the start of combat, if his HP is over 25%, then he gets a bonus to all of his stats equal to the number of foes in 3 rows of 3 columns centered on him times 3 with a max of 9. Essentially just all stats of 9. You could chalk that up to. Then he also deals damage equal to X% of his defense, excluding on AoE specials. And he reduces the damage from the foe's attacks by X% of his defense during combat. During combat stats are a lot easier to come by than start of combat stats. Like some effects like this will have the effect be at the start of combat. But if we're talking in combat where your drives and your status buffs and your stat bonuses and like all of those things can come into play, this can get really crazy for him. So the amount of true damage and true DR that he could be getting is really high. And if the foe's HP is over 50%, X is 25, otherwise X is 15. So 25% of whatever his in-combat defense is, that we're talking like upwards, maybe like 90, 100 defense that you could be getting on him. If you got him fully invested, plus 10, like max flowers, you got him summoner supported too. Like this could get really crazy. So I think he's good. Honestly, the only thing he's really missing is -1 special trigger, but that's like not really mandatory. It does let him run some odd skills if he wanted to. Like you could go for Gambit if you wanted. Anybody remember Gambit when we used to run that, which was really good for a while? What is it? 15 points of true damage if you have a 5-hit special. So that could be a way to get some more DPS on him, but I mean, why would you run Gambit when you could just run Momentum? The passives now are just so unfair. So we're going to next compare him to some of the other Cavalry Melee Tempest Trial prize units, which are his contemporaries. So first up, we've got Ectordeer. Now, they have actually the exact same stat line, except Xander has 5 more points of, or 10 more points of speed. And then Ectordeer's got 5 more points of HP and 5 more points of res. Honestly, I like Ectordeer's a little bit better, giving more overall bulk if he wants to try to tank stuff. Xander having all that extra speed doesn't really do him any favors, sadly. I mean, there is actually an instance where that might come into play. Well, I'll talk about that when we get there. So it's not like a complete shaft that he's got all this unnecessary speed, but I would say, yes, I would have preferred him to have more of a bulky stat line like this guy. And then also we have the baby unit from last year, who is also one of the more recent melee calves that we've gotten. He gets 5 extra flowers, the baby Frederick, because he released last year. But Stat line is pretty much the same to Xander. Frederick has 1 more HP. Xander's got 1 more attack. Xander has 1 more speed. And then they tie on defense. And then Frederick's got 1 more res. So they're not particularly different when it comes to stat line. Overall, though, weapon is where Xander really shines. Frederick gives out bonus doubler support to an ally that he has ally support with. So it's only 1 ally who can get it. Whereas Ectordeer is giving not only bonus doubler, but then he also gives further blue buffs of +3 to attack and defense to all allies in 2 spaces of him. So, unfortunately for Baby Frederick, he's not as good as Ectordeer. And then Ectordeer compared to Xander, I think, is a mix and match, sort of. Ectordeer is capable of more support. So if you want to go for that, I would say this guy's better. However, in combat, I think Xander is probably better. And he's going to have insane in-combat bulk. So he's definitely worthwhile to invest in. As you've noticed as well, like, these guys are green. Frederick is an axe. This guy is a blue beast. And then Xander is red. So we do have a lot of color diversity between these units, which is nice. Okay, next up for the arena scoring, we have Marin as our stand-in for Xander because he's not on the calculator yet. He will score in the same bin as Marin. They've both got preference weapons, and then they both are melee, so they've got access to distant counter melee. Cyril score ties with Xander. Why is Cyril the gatekeeper for arena scoring? Who would have thought, right? Like, this guy came out... When did he come out? Like, Brave... The Brave banner that had Corrin and those guys on it. Corrin, Sorin, Male Robin, and Gulveig. That's when this guy came out. That was like 2 Choose Your Legends ago, man. And he's still the gatekeeper for scoring for arena for some reason. Alright, and then if you really want to go hardcore for arena scoring, Panette and Marnie are still where it's at. And there's not many free-to-play units that can compete with them when it comes to score. So Xander, I would say he is at least entry-level arena-worthy if you get him to +10, but the deeper you go, you're probably going to want Marnie and Panette type of units instead. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at builds. I've got 1 build, but 2 different flavors of the same build, and we'll talk about the differences as we go along. So basically with this guy, I think you want to just have him be a player phase initiator with a lot of bulk. So attack and defense XL makes the most sense. It combos really well with his weapon, where the amount of movement spaces that he uses are going to equate into true damage reduction. And if the enemy's proc a special, he gets even more true damage reduction. So his weapon already does that. It eats off of him getting a lot of in-combat defense, which XL will do. Potentially up to +10 if he gets all the movement. So lots and lots of synergy there between the weapon and the A skill. Momentum 4 should go without saying. Because this guy is not going to be tanking. I mean, you could run a tank build on him if you wanted with, like, fortifications or distant counter echo or something like that. But I think he's not really going to be the best tank when it comes to far attacking units. Because you look at his res stat and you just want to cry. 28 res. You're going to get torn in half by any decent mage. So, not a good idea. And then it's not even, like, recommended for him to tank in melee combat either anymore, when there's a lot of really good melee units that have adaptive damage, or they can easily get adaptive damage. So, I wouldn't even bank too highly on his survivability in melee combats when there's guys like Felix that can just target his low res and he's in big trouble. So what I would go for here is just a player phase build that initiates. Haze Slice combos great with Momentum 4 because it gives you -1. Momentum will give you -2, and there you go. You got your Haze Slice ready to go. It's also giving him non-pierceable DR there and 35% bonus damage based on attack. Erica Ring on this one. We'll take a look at the Sigurd Ring in a moment, but Erica Ring is pretty funny on him, because he can just get a Brave attack on the first round of combat per turn, enemy phase or player phase. So I think, I mean, if this guy's hitting 4 times, he's got enough speed that he could bully slow armors like Marnie, for example. So this is where his speed actually does come into play a little bit, particularly for arena when you're fighting all those Marnies and other armors type units that are very slow. He can take advantage of them and bully them with his okay-ish speed. He can get the quad on them, and that should be looking really good for him. So that's good. And then we have even attack wave N on this build to give a little support to the allies, and then also it's giving him a lot of in-combat attack and DPS. So this is pretty much the first build. I think this one is the higher damaging build overall. This one is a little bit more consistent, though. It depends on what you're trying to go for. Like this one, you're getting more defensive capabilities there with Excel giving you all the DR, and then also even Attack Wave End gives you in-combat healing every time you land a hit. He can land up to 4 hits with the Erica Ring, mind you. So that could be 20 in-combat healing, potentially. So you could go for that, or you could go for this here. Attack and Speed Insight Hone is giving you overall more support for your allies, and still giving him relevant support too. Like, Incited is a great status effect. We're getting +1 movement and Canto 3 from the Sigurd Ring. The Canto is irrelevant, but the +1 movement is very good. And that already gives us 2 active bonuses for Sly Sturdy, where we're getting Incited and +1 movement. So all the conditions are met for this, and it gives us +5 true damage, which is good. I prefer Excel a little bit more over Sly Sturdy on this guy in particular, though, because he will be getting the enemy phase stats with Excel, whereas Sly Sturdy Blow is only on the player phase you get the stats. So keep that in mind. And that's pretty much it. Basically, Lull Echo, I can't imagine using a different Echo skill on him. What are his options? So Distant Counter Echo, that's probably not it. Death Blow Echo is okay. More so, I would say, on the Erica Ring build, but Lull Echo is going to equate to better than Death Blow Echo if the enemies have got any sort of active bonuses, which I'm sure they will, because we're in active bonus meta right now. Lull Echo is definitely going to pay the dividends, and then it also nullifies any bonuses that they've got. So I would say that's definitely better. And as far as the Sacred Seal goes, Attack and Defense Clash is the one I went with, but what else could you go for? HP 5, Attack and Defense 3, if you want to go for that one. But yeah, there we go for the builds, or build with different flavors for Xander over here. He seems like a pretty competent unit overall, and definitely a worthwhile unit to build. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll catch y'all again on the flip side.